Today I'm going to talk about the Joy Luck Club and how it shows communication between different cultures. To make this clear, I will break the talk down into 6 parts. First of all, the movie is all about 4 mother-daughter pairs, so the first 4 parts of my talk will look at each pair one by one. Through these pairs, we will dig into the cultural conflicts they face, like different cultural beliefs, how men and women accept to act, what they think about love, and even the painful things from the past that shaped them. Then the last 2 parts will take us deep back and look at the whole movie. I will check how the movie shows social groups and key parts of cross-cultural communications overall. Doing it this way lets us really dive into each mother-daughter story and also get a full picture of the cultural communication themes in the film.
Joy Luck being with the passing of Su Yanwu, which sets the story in motion. Her Dr. Jing Ming travels to China in her place to meet her mother's long-lost twin daughters. Through flashbacks, the film tells the interviewed story of 4 Chinese immigrant mothers and their American-born daughters shifting between the mother's part China and the daughter's present lives in America. The 4 mothers Su Yanwu and Mei Lin Dongzhong and image clear up the group in a pioneer and were turned China, where they introduced the oppression and emotion trauma. After immigration to the United States, they found the Joy Club to present Chinese culture and to hope for better futures for their children. However, that Dr. Jingmei, Rose Wells, and Lina struggle with love, marriage, and self in time, often resisting their mother's strict expectations.
In the Joy Luck Club, the most difficult hurdle isn't just language, it represents a clash of cosmologies. The mother lives by traditional integration of Buddhism and Taoism, while the daughters stand firmly on Western scientific rationalism. We see this clearly through Stockholm encoding-decoding model regarding the jade pendant. From the center perspective, the mother Su Yuan encoded the jade as a sacred talisman. This isn't just jewelry, it's her lifelong thought, meant to bring the spiritual balance and the ethic identity to her daughter. However, the daughter Jing Mei forced to decode this. Viewing the world through the Western secularism and formal logic, she lacks the cultural code to see the spirit within the stone. She sees the pendant as merely tacky or superstitious. Ultimately, this illustrates a tragic cognitive divide. The mother transmits profound spiritual love, but due to the cultural barrier, the daughter interprets it simply as nonsense.
In this argument, we will talk about the traditional gender roles and the modern gender roles. In the June Lucking Club, Linda represents traditional Chinese gender value. In her cultural background, women are often expected to put family harmony before personal desire. Stress is shown through patience and the ability to adapt to difficult situations. In the film, Linda experiences the urgent marriage and the long-term pressure from her husband's family. Instead of open resistance, she survives through silence and careful strategy. This shows that in her cultural context, stress doesn't mean open action, but the ability to endure and adjust. From the practice of value-original theories, Lindo behavior reflects an instance-oriented value, where individuals are expected to advance social rules. Beverly shows a modern American understanding of gender roles. Growing up in United States, she valued independence, self-expression, and personal choice. A key sense in the film is shown when Wavelength decides to stop playing the chess. This choice is not because she lacks ability, but because she wants to reach control over her own life. She doesn't want her achievement to be defined by family expectations. According to Value original series, Waverly show an active oriented value, which shaping one's life through personal decision and action, rather than adapting to fixed social rules. Because Linda and Evelyn hold different value originals. They understanding stress in very different way. For the mother, stress means patient and clarify, but for the doctor, stress means choice and independence. As a result, the same behavior can carry different cultural meanings, which leads to misunderstanding and conflict.
Next, let's cover the third analyze point. MA has and her daughter Rose, and the clash of Chinese and Western marriage values. The key conflict is their take on Don't Rock the Boat. MA raised in Chinese culture sees marriage as pensions and family hero. Rose, influenced by American beliefs in equal expiration in marriage, and views her mom's pensions as self-sacrifice. Rose copied Ma's silence in her marriage, which caused a crisis. Ma pushed her to speak up, leaving bare the China-West marriage value conflict. In short, Chinese culture, family in love, marriage. Western cultures centers the individual. Chinese American families like there can be blend these values to balance cultural conflicts.
Hi, I'm Karina, and today I will talk about the argument for historical trauma influence presentations and in the interpretations. And firstly, the Su Juanwu's traumas in the behaviors. During the war, she was forced to abandon her twin daughter and go to the United States. She was plagued with lifelong guilt and transferred her pain to Jimmy Woo in an attempt to prove that she was not a negligent mother, which aligns with Linear's and the program's views on trauma research. And the secondly, Jimmy Woo's stress and outcomes. Bearing the highest expectations of their mothers, she was forced to learn the pianos and take the intelligent test. Eventually, due to the pressures of the competitions, she failed and developed extra throat. And thirdly, I will talk about the contradictions analysis based on anxieties and uncertainty management theory. Source of the anxieties. Su Yuansu fears losing her close relatives against, and Jimmy Wu fears her mother's strictness and being abandoned. The management strictness, Su Yuansu proves it through strict controls, while Jimmy Wu resists by giving up the pianos and losing in the competitions. Communications obstacles. Su Yuan regards strictness as loves, and Jimmy Woo's interprets controls as a substitute for her sisters, forcing the mother's-daughter's deadlock. Fourth, the turning point of the contradictions and the circles verifications. Turning point. Families parties allows Jimmy Zhu to understand the hidden pains of the traumas in the loss behind her mother's strictness.
The relief method.
The mothers and the daughter use and identities cognitions to alleviate each other's anxieties and uncertainties. The circles verifications, empties and understandings are the key to achieving effective emotions management in traumatic situations.
In argument 5, I will focus on how different communication strategies shape the group representation in the film. I will use the Mark Alban Coleman cultural communication theory to explain this difference. The theory suggests that no dominant group choose different way to communication in dominant culture. With Lin represent a second-generation Chinese American. She mainly adopted assimilation as her strategy. For Whiffling, stress means making her own choice and control her own life. This is clear so when she decides to stop playing chess, even though she is successful. She does this is not because she lacks ability, but because she wants to personal independence rather than cultural labeling. In contrast, her mother Lin Duo represents a first-generation immigrant. Lin Duo mainly used inspiration and adaptation. She strongly holds on Chinese cultural value and believes that stress comes from indoors and scaffold. For Lin Duo, pursuing culture is also a way to protect her self-worth. The conflict between mother and the doctor happened because they interpret the same behavior in different ways. In short, the Tension between them is not about right or wrong, but about culture and generation difference in communication strategy.
Next part, I would like to discuss interconflict and integration in cross-cultural communication from the perspective of Inditized national theory. According to Tim Monton, the core of cross-cultural communication lies in interaction between one's avoid Inditized and outspread Inditized second generation Chinese American doctors such as Jing Mei Wu and Will Zhong, who grew up in American soil, tend to embrace values like individual independence and self-actualization. In contrast, their mothers uphold the Chinese values such as self-sacrifice, emotion restraint, family piety, and family responsibility. However, the conflict eventually moves to the resolution through negotiations by laying into intent. Both entity Jinming realized that an independent American personality and a Chinese culture foundation can coexist harmoniously.
To understand the complex dynamic in the Joy Luck Club, I applied the communication accommodation theory developed by Howard Giles. This theory explains a simple but powerful human behavior. When we interact, we don't just exchange information, we actively adjust our speech, tone, and gestures. We do this for two main reasons, either to converge, meaning to change our style to match other person and build connections, or to diverge, deliberately acting differently to maintain our distinct identity and distance ourselves. In the movie, the conflict between the immigration mother and their American-born daughters is a textbook example of divergence. The daughters often use divergence to establish their American identity. They reject their mother's traditional ways to emphasize their independence. On the other side, we see characters like Lyndon John using maintenance to passive divergence. We often use silence to resist the direct communication style of the Americans. By refusing to adapt, she maintained her authority as a mother and her Chinese identity. This constant push and pull creates a massive social distance between the generations. However, the movie's resolution relies on the power of convergence. We see this transformation in Jing Mei Wu. For years, her relationship with her mother was defined by misaccommodation, but towards the end, when she sat at the mahjong table, she began to follow the norms of older generation. Her final journey to China is the ultimate act of convergence. By physically and emotionally embracing her roots, she stopped working against her mother's culture. Ultimately, the theory helps us to see that the happy ending isn't just about luck. It happens because the characters shift from the defensive intergroup orientation to an empathetic intergroup one. They finally learn that to repair a relationship must be willing to accommodate. More than just a family drama, it's a profound test on identity struggle. In my review, I argue that the core emotional conflict stem from how two generations handle face. By applying T2Mi's face negotiation theory, we can see that this isn't just a personality clash, it's a battle between two cultural value systems. On one side, the film portrays the mother as a carrier of collectivism. For them, face is about family honor and duty. We see this vividly in Ines Clear, who endure pain in silence to maintain the superficial harmony. In contrast, the daughter raised in American individualism fight for self-face, they value independence and personal achievement. This creates a tragic misalignment. The mother used avoidance to protect the family, while daughter like Waverly used confrontation to prove her worth. This stylistic clash leads to the broken relationship, as my analysis highlights. Characters like Rose Shue Jordan lose themselves by compromising blindly, failing to establish an equal negotiation mechanism. The low power distance of daughter simply can't match with the high context culture of the mothers. However, the film's ultimate message is one of integration. Jimmy's final journey isn't isn't just surrender to tradition, but a renegotiation of her identity. She finds a way to respect the collective faith without sacrificing her own autonomy. Ultimately, the film teaches that the true reconciliation requires the understanding the faith logic of the other, moving beyond cultural dualism.
In the summaries, the Luck Club focus on the fact that the Chinese fathers have the views of the Confucius collective, while their daughters are shaped by the Americanos individualisms. This leads to the conflicts in terms of the identities and the transmissions of the traumas, and the daughters, the expectations and the pressures towards their mothers are confusing and resistant. But this eventually research reconciliation through the lessons, understanding, and empties. The films also tell us that the difference in the cross-cultural families are not obstacles, but rather opportunities for closer connections.